Jr. is tearing up the old playbook. He fired the government's entire vaccine advisory panel and brought in a new team to rebuild trust from the ground up. He's also announced a sweeping overhaul of federal dietary guidelines, demanding transparency and accountability across the board. So I caught up with the secretary as he works to put health back into Health and Human Services. Secretary Kennedy, thank you so much for sitting down with me. 1 year ago today, you were running for president as a Democrat, and now you are arguably the most consequential HHS secretary, maybe in American history. Would you have ever imagined all that's happened and sort of where you'd be right now?
I would have bet a lot of money against it.
Yeah, but it's been a journey for you.
It has been a journey, and, you know, a lot of it, Laura, has felt providential. You know, I literally spent years praying every morning that I would be in a position where I could address this chronic disease epidemic in kids, and that God would put me in a, you know, a place where I could do that. And now I'm in that place, and I'm very grateful to the president. You know, he's allowed me to populate this agency with extraordinary scientists. You can't have real science if you don't have integrity, if you don't have a free flow of information, and that we can share knowledge with each other and debate that knowledge. And they're all against this regime of control, of centralized control, and of information, of censorship, of using this agency to manipulate the truth in order to achieve an outcome of compliance among Americans. There's all kinds of biases, and we need to have a system in place that will account for those biases and that will produce the best gold standard science for Americans and evidence-based medicine.
Well, and we're hopeful that that's exactly what the next 4 years brings us here at HHS. Where did this passion for nutrition, for health, for fitness come from in you? Because, I mean, to be able to make the change necessary, it really does have to be a passion, I think.
Well, you know, I was raised in a house with 11 brothers and sisters, and I had somewhere around 70 first cousins. I know what a healthy child looks like. And I started seeing children, a generation of kids coming up that was just damaged, that was suffering from autoimmune diseases like juvenile diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis. I was looking around and saying, why is nobody talking about this? And so I found myself talking more and more about it, and becoming more and more isolated, because it was the culprits, the potential culprits for this epidemic of chronic disease are all very powerful industries, and they're all the people who have the biggest army of lobbyists on Capitol Hill. And it was in nobody's interest to actually, financial interest, none of those very powerful entities, to actually look at the problem, because they were frightened about what they would find. And it would interfere with corporate profit taking. We're going to be able to show what the culprits are, and then let democracy work, and give people good information. Allow moms, when they go shopping for their children, to understand what's healthy and what's not healthy. And then some of the really bad stuff, we're going to just tell the industry, you know, we don't want you using this anymore. Kraft, which is our biggest food producer in this country, announced that it was getting rid of dyes. We met with Starbucks. You know, they have very clean food, but they do use a little bit of canola oil in their egg bites. And they said, we're going to get rid of that.
That's good. Those are one of my favorites.
Egg bites. We've had Tyson's Food say we're getting rid of all the food dyes. So industry has been wonderful. It's coming in here. It's meeting with us. They're cooperating with us, and they're working with us to make this happen.
I imagine there were some things that maybe surprised you to find once you got in here. Was there anything you came in here and said, wow, I can't believe we've been doing this way for so long?
I get those surprises every day. The vast majority of people who work for this agency are extraordinary public servants, and they're very excited about, being given a direction that they join the agency because this is what they wanted to do. They wanted to protect children's health. But the leadership of this agency for many years has been bankrupt morally and I would say scientifically. I'll just tell you, one of the crazy things is that we could not get at the health data. There's all these different agencies that store different health data. And when I came in here, they were selling it to each other. And we could be doing things with that. We could look, let's say there's 3 diabetes drugs. We can look at each one of them and say this one is causing side effects in this particular demographic, and we can look at all these things and start making good decisions about it. And that is what we're doing right now. We're revolutionizing this agency. We're bringing in AI. We've had a flood of extraordinary leaders from Silicon Valley. Some of them have literally walked away from billion-dollar businesses to come and work in humble jobs here to improve the delivery of health care, to improve the integrity of and the credibility of our science, to give individual Americans control over their health.
Whether it's the food supply, whether it's vaccines, a lot of these spaces have felt like for so long we're not supposed to talk about them, we're not supposed to address them. You've sort of blown the doors off of all of that. And I know I hear from parents all the time. You must hear this from a lot of parents.
Yeah, I hear it. If I walk down the street, I have every block, I have moms coming up and saying thank you. There's been this deliberate information chaos. So we're going to change all that. And we're going to make it so that people can do studies, that they can do gold standard science, that they can replicate those studies, and we're going to start doing real science and answer these questions for the moms. We're going to restore public faith in the public health regulatory agencies. There's so many perverse incentives that are built into our medical system now. Hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies, they're all making money from keeping us sick. And this is just a fact of life. All of those institutions make more money if you're sick. But, economic incentives have an influence on validating or fortifying judgments that may not be the best for the patient.
You come from a very famous family, a family who's had a huge impact on this country. So as Secretary of HHS, what do you want your impact to be on America?
My uncle used to say, that you could not ever find peace if you could not put yourself into the shoes of your adversary. And I think that's what President Trump tries to do. And, I respect him enormously for that. And, I'm very proud to work for him. Because I think he's got a vision that looks over the horizon. He's looking at what happens to kids in this country. He's thinking about our children and what they're going to face. And so you asked me, what I would like to see from this, and that, I just want to see those visions pan out. And a lot of the stuff that he's doing is high risk, high stakes. We have to do it. If we don't do it, we're just on this, a prearranged trajectory toward destruction. And, I thank God that we have a president in the White House that is not going to let our country go in that direction.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.